Not working? Hello. It's not on. Hello, hello, yes. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming to our Monday, April 1st meeting of the Common Council. We're going to ask council members to take their seat so we can begin the meeting. Ask the clerk to please call the roll.
Mr. Bailey, Mr. Casolaro, Mr. Camiso, Mr. Conti, Ms. Fahey, Mr. Freeman, Ms. Golby, Mr. Herring, Mr. Igo, Ms. Jenkins Cox, Mr. Konev, Mr. O'Brien, Mr. Rosenzweig, Mr. Sano, Ms. Smith, 14 present, 1 absent.
We're going to ask everyone to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance, which will be followed by a moment of silence, and we want you to please be in remembrance of Dr. Morgan Besser, who was a tireless advocate for combating gun violence in our city, who passed away last week. So we ask that you would please remember his family. Mr. Bailey. I'm sorry. Thank you very much. Please be seated. Anybody missing a pair of glasses? We will now begin our public comment period for visitors that we may have for the first time today. Public comment period is allowed for 30 minutes at the beginning of our meeting. During that time, anyone who wishes to speak on a subject of their choice can do that for up to 5 minutes. We've had people sign up prior to the meeting, so only those who have signed up prior to the start of the meeting will be able to give their comments. So at this time, we're going to ask the clerk to please call the first speaker.
Marlon Anderson.
Good evening, members of the public, members of the council. My name, of course, is Marlon Anderson, a longtime community advocate from West Hill in the city of Albany. I'm going to try to put 3 subjects in 5 minutes, so wish me luck. The first subject I want to address is the most prominent one, and that is the issue that we've been dealing with for the last week or so, which is the Arbor Hill issue in our Yarborough with the police drill. And basically, as I spoke upon at the main meeting that was held regarding the issue at the Arbor Hill West Hill Library about a week ago, this is an issue of information and the lack of same, and the disconnection that was created between the public and the city in the providing of the proper information that needed to be had regarding the situation. If the information would have been properly connected to the public, if the public would have been properly informed, if they would have had agency that would properly inform them, this major issue and projected liability for the city of Albany would have been a non-issue and a non-starter. But this is part and parcel of what I've been before you for the last few months pushing for. The disconnect of information in this city between the city and the urban areas is telling. And it's been exemplified in the police issue that we had last week. We have a disconnect in this city, an information divide between the urban areas of the city and the city. And it needs to, in fact, it demands to be addressed. Because what other important issues that the urban community should have known about that they do not know that's coming from this city? When we're talking in terms of information, it could be jobs, it could be opportunities, you name it. And it's not just security and quality of life that's being lost due to a lack of information, it's opportunity, an opportunity to advance yourself because you don't have access to the information that you should have as a member of this community. Again, we have two communities in this city. We have one community that's adequately served, and we have another community that is not served at all. And it was glaringly displayed in that police action. And that is why I call for and continue to call for an Office of Urban Affairs in this city. An Office of Urban Affairs would have been the office that could have prevented that because that information could have been provided to that office. And that office could have reached out to the community as an insourcing and outsourcing body of information that would have provided that information to the community. And this situation would save the commotion in the community, would have saved the probable liability that the city now faces. That's what happens when you have information and it's applied properly and used properly. So again, later this week, I'm going to send a proposal via email through the office of the council, once again, for someone to take up the cause of creating that office. Because again, without an office of proper information, this city will continue to have situations like they had in Adiabra. Secondly, I'd like to pursue again and clarify a few things. As we know, last meeting here, I addressed the snug issue, and it kind of magnified from the words I said here in this chair to become a media issue. I must clarify again, my statement was made to the benefit of snug. Again, I do not advocate the police taking over snug in any way. What I advocated for was snug to have a solid footing on a budget basis to be incorporated into the Albany Police Department budget. And I still advocate that in a manner similar to the way charter school funding is pursued in the school budget. I think that would, rather than every year having to hope and cajole for snug to be funded, that snug could have a solid basis of funding, which is what the Albany Police Department would provide. Because, to be frank, if there is an economic downturn or a recession, as they are looking at, if the sequester hit it as hard as they said it was, for example, snug could essentially be written out of existence as something they couldn't afford. But if they stand on a solid footing, a solid budgetary ground, which is what I had advocated, they would have a much better chance of survival. And that's all I'm advocating for, to make sure, to ensure their survival. That's all I say. I was not advocating in any means for it to be taken over and overseen by the police department. I was advocating for them to have simply a solid budgetary footing, similar, again, as I said, to the manner in which charter schools are now funded. And I think that's a very valid option. And thirdly, the only issue I want to address is the issue of the cabaret legislation. Again, the city is going through unnecessary legislation due to onerous law. And that's what the cabaret law has become, onerous legislation. Again, it's killing jobs, killing business. It's driving away opportunity for businessmen. And it's been over 6 months. I'm just curious what has been done as pertains to that law, because it's obvious that it is still creating problems in the community. So I'm hoping that it will be addressed in a way, because it is not a law that is serving this community properly. It needs to be redone in a proper way, because right now it's not serving the city
Thank you.
in any way.
Your time is up, Mr. Anderson.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker?
Melanie Trimble.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Melanie Trimble. I'm from the New York Civil Liberties Union, and I'm here I want to thank Council Members Smith, Fahey, Golby, and Jenkins Cox for promoting the Women's Equality Agenda with a resolution, and that's why I'm here tonight. Currently, gaps exist in New York law that perpetuate discrimination against women in many aspects of their daily lives, including employment, housing, access to credit, and health care. Resolution number 19.41.13R rightfully recognizes that the Women's Equality Agenda will help level the playing field and break down barriers so women can more fully and equally participate in society. I would like to address just 3 of the 10-point provisions contained in the Women's Equality Agenda to demonstrate how critical the agenda is to the lives of women in New York State. For instance, women in New York earn just 84% of what their male peers are paid. And this reality is even more stark for women of color and African and Hispanic women, earning only 67 and 54 cents, respectively, to every dollar their male peers earn. Equal pay for equal right is the law of the land right now, but our laws have loopholes and exemptions that need to be tightened. The Women's Equality Agenda would help fix these disparities by amending existing law to provide for increased damages, narrow exceptions in the law, and prohibit employers from terminating or retaliating against employees who share wage information. The Women's Equality Agenda would also provide recourse for employees in all workplaces who suffer sexual harassment on the job, the majority of whom are women. Sexual harassment is already prohibited in most workplaces, but many are surprised to learn that not all workers are protected. Those working for employers with fewer than 4 employees cannot file a complaint with the state because small employers are currently exempt from the provisions of state law that prohibit harassment. All employees, no matter the size of the business, should be able to come to work and not fear workers from sexual and other forms of harassment, regardless of the size of the workplace. The last piece of the Women's Equality Agenda that I would like to address is how the agenda strengthens women's ability to make the best health care decisions for them and their families. New York's abortion law may deter medical professionals from providing the best reproductive health care to women in New York State because currently abortion is regulated in the criminal code. The Women's Equality Agenda would align New York law with federal law and current medical practices in New York State and nationwide by removing abortion from the criminal code and putting it in the public health law where it belongs. It does not expand a woman's access to abortion services beyond the federal standards. Each of the Women's Equality Agenda's 10 provisions is critical to allowing women to achieve meaningful equality. In addition to the changes I've described, it also includes measures that would strengthen our employment discrimination laws, enhance protections for pregnant workers, and improve the lives of survivors of domestic violence. When women have equal opportunities, our families and our economy do better. The NYCLU applauds the Albany City Council's Resolution 194113R and strongly supports the passage of the Women's Equality Agenda. Thanks for listening.
Thank you so much, Ms. Trimble. Our next speaker?
David Mikahalov. I hope I pronounced that right.
Good evening, Council. I'm David. I'm 22 years old, and I've been living in the city of Albany since I was 5. And one of the things I've noticed that's an issue with the Albany, especially for the youth, is currently our access to technology, specifically in terms of internet access providers. Currently, the only provider we have is Time Warner Cable and Time Warner Cable. You know, when you like do a Google search for Verizon Fios, it says it's in Albany, but it's not actually in the city limits. It's on the outer limits. It's in Guilderland. It's in Latham. It's in Bethlehem, but it's not actually in the city. And Time Warner has a monopoly over the city in terms of internet access. One of the biggest things I'm seeing with my peers is I'm graduating college in May A lot of my peers have graduated and are graduating. And when we're looking for jobs in Albany, we can't find them because a lot of the small businesses, especially technological startups, look for a city that has a fast internet connection, and Albany just doesn't meet those needs. So they move to our suburbs and set up there. And also, if we do find a job in the city, we personally decide to move out of the city just so we can have that fast internet connection. So I got tired of this, and I decided to look around and see what I can do. And after spending 3 hours on the phone with Verizon Files to support, see if I can file petitions to have them build out here and this and that and the other, I found out, according to them, that the reason they're not in Albany is because they're awaiting permitting, which I'm not sure whether they were telling me the truth or not, but I'm in front of this council today to request that you guys provide Verizon Fios or other telecom providers the proper permitting they need so they can build out in this city, so they can provide competition in terms of internet access. And one of the things with that, it's going to invite lots of different businesses in, because then they're going to have cheap, reliable, fast internet speeds, and that's going to provide incentive for them to actually be inside of the city. It's also going to provide, kids like me, more incentive to actually live in the city, because instead of paying $90 to Time Warner Cable for mediocre service, you're paying the same $90 to Verizon or another company for speeds that are 3 times as fast. And I think that would be a really big thing for the city, because when I graduate college, it's going to be time for me to move out. And one of the make or break deals for me in terms of whether I'm going to stay in the city or not is if I have access to reliable, fast, high-speed internet. And I think that the Common Council should attempt to do everything in their power to try to get more competition in the city for internet access instead of having this monopoly of Time Warner Cable we currently have. And that's really all I've got to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for coming down with that information. Next speaker.
Mr. Vincent Raguso. That was one of my big concerns this time. Yeah. For years I've had that issue.
My name is Vincent Raguso. I live at 13 Beach Avenue, and also I'm president of Eagle Hill Neighborhood Association. I come down here to talk on a resolution that Franco Commisso was going to introduce on a number of polling spots. I think it's good that we held off a little bit, because before the school board comes down and tries to sell you the Brooklyn Bridge, I want to sell you the Dunn Memorial Bridge. I attended the meeting where they voted on a number of polling spots. 3 people talked about that we should maintain the number of polling spots that we have for the primary and the general election. Obviously, they didn't listen to us. The next day, I called down to the superintendent's office. I said, can you tell me how many polling spots you picked? He said, we picked 15. I said, 15? I said, we had 18 before the redistricting. Well, cost factor. I go, cost factor? I says, how can it be a cost factor? I said, there was no cost factor when you hired the PR person to sell refurbish a new high school. There's no cost factor there, but it's a cost factor when it comes to us citizens in the city of Albany voting. I says, I don't understand that. That's a cost factor. All right. I says, well, can you tell me if it's a regular school day? Oh, yes, it's a regular school day. So where's my polling spot? Where's the 15th Ward polling spot? We have Eagle Point School. I says, so you're telling me that the entire 15th Ward, which is roughly 6,600 people, if everybody, and we know not everyone votes, but everyone who is eligible to vote has to go to Eagle Point? Oh, yes. She says, but there's more to it. I said, well, there is. Yeah, she says, it takes in from Davis Avenue up to there. So there's more than just the 15th Ward. There's a lot of people going to vote there. And being a school day, that means that we vote in the library, because we can't use the gym and we can't use the cafeteria. I says, well, you realize that the gym is in the front of Western Avenue. I says, and it's a distance for the seniors to walk. Not only is it a distance for the senior to walk, there is no place to park. So if any one of you were a senior and had difficult walking, you might have to walk a quarter of a mile to a half a mile or to whatever to vote. I says, I can't believe you're doing this. Yeah. I says, it's in the library. Do you know that this coming May, it'd be 1 year that Leonard Morgenbesser had all to do to walk into the library to vote on the school budget. And then he was in the wrong polling spot, and I had to walk him out. That's only half the problem. We had seniors come in. Mike Tricolo had a new knee. I had to sit him down. We had the people that own Nino's Bakery, Muccio. She got in there. She was so exhausted from where they have to walk, I had to sit them down. So when you look at it, these polling spots, 15, are they picking and choosing where I can get the yeses and where I can get the nos? Us being more seniors, it may be possibly more likely to get a no up in my area than a yes on the budget. I just can't fantasize why they would put this few voting. And I want to tell you one other thing. Did I tell you? And I told you before, it is a school day. So everything that happened at Sandy Hook, this clown that walked in there and shot all those students, and what we went through to enhance our security in the schools is all shot to hell. All shot to hell. I brought that up to on the phone to the lady. She says, well, if we have people walking through the school, maybe they'll see the classrooms. I said, but you got school going on. I said, there is no more security. We just shot it out the works. Something has to be done. I mean, they talk about cost. Last year, the school come up with a zero budget. Keep that in mind, zero budget. But it still kept, every taxpayer has still had to pay 3.6% because the tax levy wasn't there to do their budget. Think about that. So when you get that person up in front of you from the school board, think of everything I said here today, and I'll be back the 15th. Hopefully my voice will be better, and we have to do something. I just can't believe that they're segregating us the way they are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Ragusa. Next speaker.
Jesse Calhoun.
Hello. All right, I'm here to discuss the incident at Ida Yarborough and just kind of the military-style police drill that went on there. There's kind of a nationwide trend of unannounced drills going on across the country, in Chicago, Los Angeles, and even in New Jersey, where the governor signed off on allowing unannounced active shooter drills in schools. Also, including 3 days after the Newtown shooting, there was an unannounced drill, I believe in New York City, on a school of over 300 children with special needs. So I kind of see it as a national trend that's a little bit disturbing, as it may cause trauma, as we saw with some of the children in Ida Yarborough. Now, kind of what I would like to see is some form of civilian oversight where we are provided more oversight and documentation than simply kind of words and assurances of police. So I have kind of a series of questions. I'm not going to read them. I have them on paper, but I just kind of request your assistance in helping me to kind of gather documentation regarding the incident at Ida Yarborough, and also assistance in setting up a system with more civilian access, transparency, and oversight. I think it could, turn the community policing efforts of Albany into an example for the rest of the country, where we have a clear line of communication with the police and what's going on, and kind of bucking that national trend. That's really it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Next speaker.
Daniel Platt.
Hello and good evening. Name's Dan Platt, age 24. Here to kind of build off of what Jesse...
Could you repeat your name and address,
Yes,
please?
Daniel Platt, 187 Elk Street.
Say that again.
187 Elk Street.
Elm?
Elk.
Okay, thank you.
That's it. Here to build off of what Jesse just said, but in a more different personal direction. In a way of addressing this, this general issue of police oversight and community policing as a policy moving forward and not kind of stopping halfway, I'll start with a suggestion from a former Marine who I work with, who is actually the opposite of, on the political spectrum from me, but that just speaks to the good idea of at least having basically civilians in charge of police training. If this was a police training issue, then civilians could be in charge of that. Rather, you know, to kind of draw the line, who does the police answer to? The general problems I have are more about consistency. I remember having a meeting with, in Sheridan Hollow with our community policeman. He was an excellent guy, bright blue uniform and whatnot, very amicable personality. But in our conversation, we're talking about how the police are putting up more cameras so they can watch every corner, so that they can, and just rather kind of, that the difference between the community policing during the day and then other kinds of police conduct, maybe the different departments of the police, traffic control, whatnot, are literally night and day. I'll ask go through this kind of thought experiment. You're driving down the road, following traffic laws as best you can. Police car pulls you over and basically starts writing a speeding ticket, says you're speeding, just simply asserts his radar gun picked you up as speeding. You can deny it, you can ask for his badge number, but you don't really have much authority to dispute him on this. He's going to write you your ticket, you're going to pay it, you can either spend time, energy, resources fighting in court. If you dispute him in any way, well, I'm absolutely certain I wasn't speeding. Well, he could take that as a threat, harassment, and he'll compound the charge, double the ticket. These things happen, and it's a matter of consistency. For as many times I've seen the police be helpful and do their jobs in an appropriate and successful manner, we see the police do the opposite, be threatening, basically start ticketing and arresting people regardless of guilt or evidence of guilt. Kind of a take no chances approach. And this can lead to kind of wasted money and wasted opportunities. The training for the SWAT team, for example. I would argue, and this is more opinion, but I'll give some reasons, why do we even need a SWAT team? The police pointed out, rightfully, well, they need, we used it once for that one situation. Now, I wanted to determine the truth and what really happened because I was actually out of town at college. And I looked at 3 different news stations, the YNN, Times Union, and the ABC affiliate, and they all seem to have different accounts of what happened, how effective the SWAT was, how was the SWAT implemented. So I couldn't really get a straight answer. Was the SWAT worth it? And I'm not going to hold the police accountable if they want to keep the SWAT team. I won't blame them for wanting to keep the SWAT team. If I could go out in flak jackets every day, I probably would. But I would certainly criticize anyone who would keep the SWAT team in place, even if it's